Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here for our Innovation Iowa Unveiling Panel Discussion event. Thank you for being here. Can you give yourselves a big round of applause for being here, out here to learn and grow here today and learn about innovation in the state? Thank you for being here. We know you could be a number of places today. We're glad you're enjoying a great lunch here today with us on a nice summer day. So we've got a great program, and for years this event has been focused on recognizing the innovation leader and Entrepreneur of the Year honorees, and we're going to be doing that as well as unveiling the annual Innovation Iowa magazine. Last year, we wanted to take a new approach to celebrate innovation in the state by helping foster a discussion about the future of innovation in the state and taking a deeper look at wider innovation ecosystem that is required for us to foster entrepreneurial activity and ultimately economic growth. My name is Chris Konetsky. I'm the group publisher for BPC, which produces Innovation Iowa and the Business Record. We're so excited that you're here with us today. Our moderator today is going to be Sarah Dean. She's put together an excellent panel today to help us do just that and digest innovation here. But that's just going to be we're also going to have the opportunity to honor, we got the train. So we moved at the beginning of the year from the old depot across from Hessen House, and we got very used to the trains coming through. So you're going to see me power right through this, and I'm glad we get just an extra little taste of what it was like to be back there at our old office. So our moderator today is Sarah Dean. She's put together a fantastic panel. After the event, we're going to be also handing out our 2024 Innovation Magazine, which has been set up to help highlight the diverse parts of the innovation ecosystem. I'm excited for today's discussion because we're going to analyze each of those pieces. You're going to see that reflected in the panelists as well, and I can't wait for you to dig into that publication afterwards. But before we do, we want to celebrate our 2 award winners, recognize our supporters today that are helping power today's important discussion. Today's event wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, and our presenting sponsor for the event and magazine has been providing personal insurance services to clients for over 90 years. Wellabe has seen tremendous growth in these past 90 years, but through its transformation, Wellabe has always continued to maintain their principal foundation of caring for their customers. Please help welcome Dave Keith, CEO of Wellabe, for some comments.
Good afternoon, everybody. The train is gone. How appropriate. As Chris said, we are very honored, Wellabe, to sponsor this event. This is the second year, by the way, we've had this opportunity. This is also the second year I've had the opportunity to speak. I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll find out. But for those, just briefly, who aren't familiar with Wellabe, we are a new name, but an existing company. We've been in the Des Moines community area for 95 years. We were originally founded by Watson Powell as American Republic Insurance. Some of you may know that. Last year in June is when we renamed ourselves. Just a few notes about that founding, because it ties into somewhat about innovation. I want to share this, is that Mr. Powell's vision was to create a company really founded on the principle of caring. And I'm proud to say that we upholded that vision and continue to move it forward for probably the next 95 years and then on. The Wellabe team is truly dedicated to caring for its customers. We serve over 800,000 of them today. Some people probably don't know that. The actual name Wellabe comes from the phrase, we'll always be here for our customers, fulfilling the promises and helping them be well. We'll also be here for our employees and our community. We understand the importance of business to embrace change and encourage the teams to think differently and challenge the status quo. That's why we're really excited to be here. Members here from the Wellabe team, please stand just so they all see you. With their help, it's truly pushed our growth and transformed the organization to be better for the future in an increasingly connected world, and we all know what that means. I will tell you, in my view, in business, I believe that innovation lives on the edges, and it's usually based on an idea or a collection of ideas that is brought forward by someone who seeks to be different. It's often the seeds for transformation and the source for economic growth and competition. Innovators aren't interested in change, they're interested in impact. To an innovator, failure is a successful discovery of something that doesn't work. I'm grateful to work for a company that's committed to leveraging innovation. I'm also grateful to work in a community and state that supports innovation. One of the reasons we've been successful is both Des Moines and the state of Iowa have been tremendously supported to allow our company to thrive. We have a talented workforce from business leaders and lawmakers that cooperate with us to move it forward. So on behalf of the business record, thank you, and the rest of you for being here. We are really excited about this to bring together and elevate innovation to new heights. So I'll turn it back to you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Our next sponsor is touted as America's, maybe I gave you a little bit more growth there than you really have. Iowa's largest law firm. Our supporting sponsor is Nyemaster Good Law. It has experienced a century of growth, success, and continual adaptation while serving their clients since 1918. Nyemaster provides multifaceted expertise for their clients with a dedication to excellence and ethics. With us today is Ryan Carter, an attorney and head of intellectual property for Nyemaster. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Nyemaster is very proud to be sponsoring this event again. I believe this is our 7th year sponsoring this particular event. And the magazine has become a great annual snapshot of the state of innovation in Iowa, and we're very proud to be here and to be part of it. This event celebrates the unveiling of the latest edition, and it's always a highlight of the year for me and for everybody at Nyemaster. I can't wait to dive into the stories of innovation that are always so well chronicled in the magazine, and to learn from today's panel discussion featuring key members of our innovation community. With roots in Iowa and a global reach, Nyemaster Good combines broadly diverse legal practice areas, worldwide relationships, and more than a century of success to effectively serve our clients. As Iowa's largest law firm, we help companies of all sizes solve their most challenging issues in virtually all areas of the law, including corporate structure, capital raising, intellectual property protection, tax planning, employee benefits, labor and employment law, government relations, and litigation. This breadth gives us a unique perspective to watch Iowa's innovative spirit up close from our offices in Des Moines, Ames, and Cedar Rapids. Every day, we're working with visionaries seeking to protect their ideas, grow their businesses, and solve some of society's most challenging problems. We're proud that our cutting-edge, positive legal approach has helped businesses and innovators of all sizes succeed for more than 100 years. Thank you for doing your part. Everybody here today, thank you to help foster and invest in the ideas and solutions that keep driving innovation in Iowa forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Nyemaster, for the sponsorship today. Our new supporting sponsor here today is Momentum, a consulting company focused on helping organizations meet complex challenges through a curious, innovative mindset. With us today is Jeff Reed, founder and CEO of Momentum. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, good afternoon, morning to everyone. Really excited to be a sponsor of this event. I think, like the others have mentioned, innovation is such an important part of business, life, social impact, really all aspects of what we do. As a company, we are a design and innovation studio. We're headquartered in Ankeny. So if anyone wants to drop by, I'd be happy to show you around our place. We just moved in a couple months ago. But a lot of people, when I say that, a lot of people are like, well, design innovation, what does that even mean? Well, we're essentially professional problem solvers, right? We tackle those complex challenges that organizations have. Sometimes it's around products, sometimes it's around services, other times it can be around experiences. And we take a human-centered approach to do that. So it's kind of like playing in a sandbox or with Legos or Play-Doh every day, because that's what we get to do, tear things apart and put them back together. So really excited to be here, also to be on the panel. So I'm gonna stop talking because you'll hear me a little bit more in a minute. So thank you all for being here. We'll give it back to Chris.
Thanks, Jeff. And I should have mentioned, Jeff was one of our award winners, I believe, last year as well. So thank you again, Jeff, for sponsoring today and being here today. It's now my pleasure to recognize our 2024 Innovation Entrepreneur Award sponsor, EO-IOWA, which stands for Entrepreneurs Organization, and is a support network of like-minded leaders. Through connections and collaboration, entrepreneurs help entrepreneurs achieve their full potential. Here to tell us more is Andy Leisure, president of EO-IOWA. Andy, welcome. Let's give Andy a round of applause.
We're honored to be a part of this special event today and to have our organization be associated with this prestigious award. Entrepreneurs Organization is an international group of over 18,000 like-minded individuals, all traveling a similar path called entrepreneurship. We have a strong local chapter based here in Des Moines, and our membership consists of founders or majority shareholders of companies with revenues over $250,000 per year. These companies span over several industries and trades. Our membership criteria provides an assurance that the connections made in our group result in relevant discussions regarding managing employees, cash flow, sales funnels, and overall profitability. We provide learning and connection opportunities with fellow entrepreneurs here in Des Moines, across our region with strong chapters in Omaha, Kansas City, St. Louis, Minneapolis, and Chicago, and with other chapters based in countries all over the world. But year after year, our members report that the strongest benefit is a peer-led forum experience, a monthly small group meeting of fellow local entrepreneurs which have been screened for non-competition and bound by confidentiality to discuss what we call the 5%. That 5% of the highs and that 5% of the lows of your personal journey in entrepreneurship. Discussing these topics in a safe environment with members that are traveling on a similar journey leads to incredible discussions and growth for the entire group. If you are a founder or a majority shareholder of a small business with over $250,000 in annual sales and are looking for a growth and learning opportunity, please explore our organization online or see me after the event. We'd love to have you consider joining our chapter. And now, on to the EO-IOWA Innovation Entrepreneur Award. Iowa State University is often recognized for excellence in research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Annually, Iowa State ranks in the top 100 of global universities earning U.S. patents. The school won an innovation award from the Innovation and Economic Prosperity Universities program and was named the Entrepreneurial University of the Year for the Americas by the Accreditation Council of the Entrepreneurial and Engaged Universities, among numerous other distinctions. The leader who has helped foster this environment of innovation is President Wendy Wintersteen, this year's EO-IOWA Innovation Entrepreneur Award recipient. During her tenure, Wintersteen has been a founding member of America's Cultivation Corridor, a founding member of the Business Education Alliance through the Iowa Business Council, and a fierce advocate for students, faculty, and researchers. She also helped collaborate with corporate partners to start a technology innovation center in 2018. President Wintersteen is a fierce advocate for students, research, and Iowa. She is a statewide leader who wakes up every day to drive strategic priorities that seek to ensure the next generation of top talent has the resources that they need to be successful in the workplace, in life. That was written by Gage Kent, Chairman and CEO of the Kent Corporation. ISU Ivy College of Business Dean Spalding wrote, President Wintersteen is also deserving of recognition for her innovation at Iowa State culture-changing initiative, which has been at the forefront of her leadership. Innovate at Iowa State is the notion that innovation isn't reserved for a select few. It's for everyone, From designing curriculum to constructing facilities, it's being deliberate about making resources for the innovation accessible to everyone, students, faculty, staff, and industry partners. EO Iowa, in conjunction with the Business Record and Innovation Iowa magazine, are proud to recognize Wendy Wintersteen as the 2024 Innovation Entrepreneur Award honoree.
Well, thank you, Andy. I really appreciate those wonderful comments, and I want to thank the Business Record, and I always like thanking Connie, and I'm trying to see where Connie's seated right now, but thank you so much for this special honor. And I want to acknowledge that while this is an honor that I'm very pleased to accept, this is really about Iowa State University. And I'm seated at a table with a set of colleagues that have done the work for this special honor. And I want to ask them to stand and be recognized. If they would get a round of applause from all of you. At that table are individuals representing the Papa John Center, the SciBiz Lab, the Office for Innovation and Commercialization, the Startup Faculty, the Economic Development Industry Relations Office, and there's many more at Iowa State University that are busy making sure that our culture of innovation and entrepreneurship is alive for the faculty, staff, and students at Iowa State University. And it's also about those industry partnerships. And right here in front of me is many of the board members for America's Cultivation Corridor. Billy Hunt leads that group, and I'd ask them to stand and be recognized for what they do for food and agriculture in this state. Would you please stand and be recognized for the partnership that you do as well? And there's many others in the room that I could recognize, but I'll turn and just talk a little bit about our students and how much they matter to us at Iowa State University. When we think about innovation and entrepreneurship, other universities often think about it only in terms of research. But we decided a long time ago at Iowa State that it's really about undergraduates as well, that they have the opportunity to be involved in a different way. And we demonstrated this most recently in 2020 when we opened up the Student Innovation Center, where students can come every day and create and make and learn what it means to be someone that's developing a business. And it really changes how we think about it if you're thinking about a focus on undergraduate students. And I think it's also important to note, because we have an entrepreneurship major and entrepreneurship minor, that students really have a different mindset when they leave Iowa State University. Every year, something like 7,000 students can take a class related to innovation and entrepreneurship. So they leave Iowa State University with an entrepreneurial eye, with a thought about innovating. So whether they go to work for a Fortune 500 company, or they go back to a business in rural Iowa, or they start their own business, they're thinking about it differently because of the opportunities they've had at Iowa State University to be in that Student Innovation Center, to be a Sci Starter, to be part of the Papa John Center, to be engaged differently in the Ivy College of Business. We're so pleased that today you'll hear from one of our outstanding alums, Martin Gross, and what he's doing with his business, and what any of our graduates can do, because they've had a different approach. What we're doing in innovation at Iowa State is making us a destination university. Nobody does innovation like we're doing at Iowa State. Our marketing slogan is "Innovate at Iowa State." So thank you for this honor. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words, to brag a little bit about Iowa State University today. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again to Dr. Wendy Wintersteen. I know you are talking about it as a university award, and we understand that that's your personality type to do that. But the reason when we talked about it as a committee when we were making the choice was that your leadership on the front end to help drive that and set that as the mission for the university was really the defining factor for us, for you as an individual. So you should take some credit for that as well too, Matt. All right, thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce our 2024 Innovation Leader Honoree, which was created to recognize a company or organization for their innovation achievements. Our honoree this year is On With Life. Originally incorporated in 1987 as a nonprofit, On With Life, this year's Innovation Leader Award recipient, has been dedicated to helping patients with post-acute brain trauma with continued rehabilitation after they have been deemed medically strong enough to leave the hospital. From those beginnings, the organization has grown to have 4 locations, including 2 in Ankeny, 1 in Polk City, and another in Coralville. Finding few and innovative ways to care for clients has always been paramount to the success of the organization. This has included not only new forms of treatment, but also the creation of the apartments of Owl Creek, 14 independent living units for their clients to utilize, as well as the On With Life outpatient neurorehabilitation program in a house near inpatient facilities. The newest development, and the one that singled On With Life out for recognition this year, is something most of us would take for granted: the ability to have a restroom facility that meets individual needs. Many of their residents are either left or right side compromised, meaning they would not be able to access a toilet from one side. By partnering with SVP Architects, On With Life was able to design bathrooms that allowed optimal access from all sides. Why is this important? It not only allows advanced safety, convenience, and reliability of use, but also provides facility staff safe and efficient positioning when giving residents assistance. In addition, it greatly exceeds the American with Disabilities Act standards, which do not always take into account the needs of severely impaired individuals. This seemingly small thing is a real big deal to residents and staff alike. And the Business Record and Innovation Iowa are proud to recognize On With Life as a 2024 Innovation Leader Award recipient. Please welcome Gene Shelton, CEO of On With Life.
Thank you so much. Thank you especially to the Business Record for recognizing this effort. We're not a traditional company that you would see recognized for innovation. However, I would argue that as a nonprofit, and many nonprofits would understand this logic, you have to get creative, especially in times when you don't really have all of the money in the world, or even a little bit of money, to take care of things that need to be taken care of. On With Life is all about dignity and independence and helping people get on with their lives. Most of the people we serve in our facility, or many facilities, were you yesterday. They were going to work, or they had some event in the evening, or they had a car accident, or there was some medical condition that occurred, and suddenly their life has turned upside down. And what we do in our facility with, I think, some of the most innovative team members that I can describe, is we help them find a way to move on and get on with life. This particular project that we're working on with the help of Hubble and SBPA, and they're at the table over there, really was our opportunity to say, what should a long-term facility look like for individuals that don't have the opportunity to experience independence, or even the basic things like access to a restroom that you can use. Now, many of the facilities that you'll see are ADA compliant, but ADA compliance doesn't always mean or equal access. So our team, and I like to say, if you give a bunch of rehab professionals some time and some duct tape, they're going to figure something out and create a solution. And I am so proud of this team. They taped out with our design team, SVPA. They worked through what would it take for each of our people that we serve to be able to truly access their restroom in the most dignified manner possible. And this is the difference between life in an adult diaper versus being able to have basic dignity. And so this team worked for months on this. We actually had to work with the state of Iowa to gain an exception to ADA policy because it wasn't technically ADA. I like to think of it as ADA on steroids. We wanted this to go beyond the technical explanation of the rules for access. So we've done that through a lot of hard work. I would say 6 months of work in this design and approval process, and well worth our time because now we have folks that are able to use their restrooms. It seems simple, doesn't it? Just that one simple thing. So I want to thank the team with On With Life. If you would all stand. SVPA is here and Hubble Construction is here, and big hand. I'd also like to give a shout out to Dr. Wintersteen. You'll see if you look at the description of On With Life in the magazine, you'll also see our reference to Iowa State. We have long used interns and students to help us with 3D printing to make accessories for our wheelchairs and other special things that we need. So thank you, Iowa State, for that support, and thank you all.
Congratulations again to both On With Life and Jean for your recognition today. One of the things that I think you'll see in the way that we choose awards for this every year is we try to find the many different ways that innovation shows up within individuals and within companies. On With Life is another really fantastic example of that this year in a way that you might not always think about it. One of the things that our panel will end up talking about today, and I'm sure Sarah will be helping us talk through today, is about the process of innovation. That's something you're going to see all throughout the course of the magazine. You're going to see it represented on the cover of our magazine. On With Life's story about that process of how to go about taking something that seems like a small challenge perhaps and making it into something that has such a large effect is really, really a good example of what we're going to be talking about a little bit more today. Speaking of that, we've got a great panel lined up today. Our moderator is Sarah Dean. She's our digital editor and innovation beat reporter. We're so lucky to have Sarah keeping us dialed into what's trending on innovation and in front of our community. And you should definitely sign up for our Thursday's Innovation e-newsletter, Innovation Iowa e-newsletter, which comes out and it's free. It comes out every Thursday morning. Best way to keep up to date with everything that's going on in the community as it relates to innovation. Sarah was instrumental in curating today's panel, and I just returned from our Association of Business Journals conference, which has representatives from more than 40 publications from across the country, some of the largest cities in the community, in the country. And for the second year in a row, Sarah was honored as the best innovation and technology beat reporter in our association. Let's give her a big round of applause. You're going to be in great hands with Sarah today. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. When it comes to innovation, it's easy to spot the tangible results. From the announcement of a new technology or service or new roles in an organization to the amount of revenue generated by a new initiative or funding raised by a startup. But what makes those milestones meaningful are what preceded them: hours of work, pivots, failures, and a culture that supports innovators throughout that process. In this year's Innovation Iowa magazine, we made a concerted effort on the cover and in the stories to highlight innovation in action and how the path from idea to action is rarely linear. A common thread in this year's stories is innovation in the form of continuous improvement. Rather than settle for good enough, stakeholders in corporate, startups, education, risk capital, and government are using the momentum they've built to ask if and how their ideas could be better or do more. I'm very excited to talk with our panel today about how Iowa can continuously improve its innovation ecosystem in ways that advance the state's position on innovation and entrepreneurship and empower everyone to innovate. I'm going to jump right in and get to our conversation. With us today, we have Jon Darsee, Director of Engineering at Gross-Wen Technologies, Jon Darsee, Chief Innovation Officer at the University of Iowa, Tej Dhawan, Managing Director and Co-founder of Plains Angels, and Candy Karstjens, Director of the Nyack John Papajohn Entrepreneurial Center, and Jeff Reed, Founder and CEO of Momentum Studios. Can we give them a round of applause? All right, thank you all for being here today. We are going to start with our first question and just go straight down the line and get to meet everybody first. Our first question is to share an example of a time where you saw innovation in action, whether it was something you were involved with directly or were just able to see the impact of from your role. And Jens, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. For those that might be familiar with GWT, obviously I'm not Martin Gross, but Martin just had, he and his wife just had their fourth child 2 days ago. So it's for a good reason that I'm here, but then he's not. But anyways, yeah, one of the best examples of innovation from GWT's perspective was when our first commercial system was installed with the city of Slater, Iowa, just north of here, actually. And this really took a collaborative effort between regulators, the city of Slater willing to take a chance on a new technology, as well as finding great engineering and construction partners. So it wasn't just innovation in our technology being a new way to treat water. It was innovation with all of the partners that were part of the whole project. We were just really the idea. It took a lot of innovation beyond just the technology.
Awesome. Jon?
Such a broad topic. I don't even know where to begin. There's so many examples. I think for me, you know, coming from industry where I spent 35 years and then coming back to a university environment, the biggest issue that I recognized early was talent. Particularly where most of what we do, or a large part of what we do at the University of Iowa, is around the medical side of campus. And yet we don't have a robust industry in the state to support that, which means you have to find talent and the right kind of talent at the right moment in time. In my background, I've been at 6 startups. One of them became a unicorn. And the key was always about finding, for an innovator to be successful, the most important factor besides, even more so than money, is the ability to have mentors around you who have walked the same path and successfully executed in the space that you're in. That is probably the most pivotal resource necessary to start something new and to really innovate in a unique way, and that's part of what we're trying to do.
Examples of innovation come to us as angel investors regularly, and I would say the one that stands out for me is over coffee at Java Joe's about eight and a half years ago. I was sitting having coffee with Brad Dwyer, serial entrepreneur in our community, and sitting there over coffee, he looks at this book of Sudoku puzzles and says, wouldn't it be amazing if I could write an app that would solve a unfinished or half-finished Sudoku? A week later or so, he had a prototype. That company is making waves in imaging and AI already. We saw that early on. Several of the angels in that group chose to invest in it and are now trying to see what happens to get it to the very stage that Sarah talked about. The challenge for us is often we see those companies long before they have the accolades, long before they have the products, almost always before they have the revenue. So all you see is the blood, sweat, tears, and lots of tears. The entrepreneurs in this room know they didn't laugh as loud because they have had the tears. But that's just one of the examples, and I'm glad we saw that then and were able to invest in it.
Awesome. Candy?
Thanks. I think probably one of the most innovative approaches I've seen lately kind of piggybacks with Tej. As the Entrepreneurship Center, I probably see them before you even see them. So the struggle for access to capital is a real struggle, whether you're rural or urban. And so The partnership between Iowa Economic Development, BioConnect to come up with InnovationIOWA, and that public-private partnership venture capital fund to get access to those early-stage entrepreneurs, I think was very innovative. And it doesn't happen in every state, but it happened here.
And Jeff?
Yeah, I would agree with Jon. It's a broad topic, and there are so many. I think one that I enjoy is something that's not what would be considered a large or technology innovation. We worked with a national company that has a lot of part-time or night shift employees, and one of the things that they went through was this process of competing for talent, like all of us do. And we kept coming back to the same thing, right? The bottom line didn't make sense, or it didn't work to pay them more. So what we dug into was, if we can't pay them more, can we pay them more often? And so they actually changed their pay schedule to pay most of their shift employees daily, much like an Uber driver. That's where our inspiration came from. How can they work and get paid daily? Because most of those employees are needing that cash, and cash flow is a challenge for them. It was a really fun process to get to that point, but that was really innovative for the company. It actually saved them money because, yes, they have some transaction fees, but now they are fully staffed, they've reduced overtime, but it's a way that they thought outside of the box to do something that is somewhat conventional of paying people. They just changed the frequency. So that's one of my favorite examples.
Great, thank you. And kind of building off of that, I kind of want to dig into, at least get a pulse from each of our panelists on just some trends that they see to kind of establish where we are right now on innovation in Iowa and where they see that from their seats. Like Jeff was just saying, it's sometimes about that approach or that mindset, maybe more than the tactile creation of an innovation to when you're talking about the ecosystem as a whole. So I wanted to ask this is also a little bit broad, but I think this will lead us down a little, find us a path to go deeper on. But I wanted to ask something you all are seeing, either that's a trend that you see that's happening or something you see distinctly that's not happening that you think warrants broader attention from stakeholders in the ecosystem. Jon, go ahead, start us off.
Well, I think the pandemic really helped in one way, that there is so much more willingness to be either remote or work fractionally. And that's, when you're starting something new and you don't have a lot of cash and you don't necessarily have the right talent around you, a really key thing, I'm going to come back to talent, I think, throughout, but a really key thing is finding the right talent to help move you forward. And now, the way the world has opened up, it seems a lot more acceptable to pull talent in. So a lot of our startup companies, one example is Perspective Therapeutics, that searched for 3 years to find a CEO. And they were very patient, and they waited, and they waited, and they interviewed a lot of people, and I helped interview some of those folks. And it wasn't somebody who was going to live in Iowa, but they didn't need that. They needed the right expertise. They finally found a person, they're in the radiopharmaceutical space, they found a person that had direct experience in that space, but also had worked on Wall Street. So this person helped them facilitate a reverse merger with a public company already, and now they have about, the stock was very low, but they were very cash rich. This company brought about $100 million to the table. Now they have real operating capital to maneuver, but if they hadn't found the right CEO, that would have never happened. And I think that's really, really important to be flexible, and I think this world has changed, and it's a very positive movement.
Got it.
I think another trend that's apparently a progression, really, what used to be popular as incubators 15, 16 years ago, transitioned into accelerators about a decade ago. Those accelerators have now given way to venture studios, where teams of professionals who've done this before come together to solve a specific problem, a lot like what Jeff referred to earlier. Every one of these entities is bringing a group of individuals, to Jon's point, from far, for a specific purpose, solve a problem, then maybe even move that team to the right geography where that team can excel with their product, with their technology, with their solutions. That is antithetical to the way where we used to say, for economic development purposes, bring the company en masse to Iowa. I think that that world is at least transitioned for a while where globally diverse, globally connected teams will solve specific problems, find commercial success, and then move that capital into the next set of ventures, whatever they may be.
I think in the rural areas, we're having to innovate within the whole ecosystem. So everything's related. So we want to help companies grow and scale, but they need additional workforce. And to have additional workforce, you need additional housing. And to attract those people to work, you need additional restaurants and lifestyle businesses. And so it's one big ecosystem. And so the most innovative trend I've seen is within some of our rural economic development groups, actually starting another nonprofit to work on housing issues, to buy housing, to buy buildings on Main Street that they can turn around then and lease out. And I think that that's what it's going to take in the rural areas to sustain, not to grow, just to sustain.
Maybe what I would say is there's a lot of different market conditions that are present today. I agree with Jon. It really perpetuated things, or things that may have happened 8 or 10 years from now. They just happened at an increasingly fast rate. But I do think that there is a silver lining of those things, because a trend I see is companies really have to understand and invest in an innovation. They also have to define it. What's unique is innovation seems to be, sorry for marketing, I love marketing, but ambiguous, right? It's like, yeah, we're innovative. Well, what does that mean? What's crazy is there's a study, they say between 40 and 60 different definitions of innovation. So that's kind of crazy to think about, right? So how you define it can be extremely different, but it's pushing companies to understand and define what innovation is. Is it process improvement? Is it something big? Is it technology related? So I like seeing that in the environment where people have to create value in a different way. They're not just creating things for waste. And basically COVID pushed people to think, how do we make things better? How do we improve things? How do we compete at a different level? Talent, products, services. So that would be a trend I think has started because of COVID and will continue to be able to compete in the marketplace.
Jens, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from GWT's perspective, where we've seen our innovation in Iowa continue to go is the challenges for water treatment that we were facing 10 years ago have gradually continued to be solved. We've been part of that. But then there's continual challenges moving forward, and we're trying to position ourselves to continue to innovate on our technology and the work that we're doing to be ready for those challenges when they do come down from the regulators.
Great, thank you. Jeff, I wanted to pose this question to you with what Tej said about like Venture Studio and that kind of progress. I know that's something that Momentum Studios is working on, and just kind of maybe give that, like you said, defining innovation. Like when you're working with clients, what does that process start to look like, and how do you dig into what each company or organization needs when it comes to innovation and what their focus needs to be on in that sense?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's a discovery process, but a lot of it is deciphering and understanding priority and timeframes. That allows us to at least put some sort of matrix together on what we're going to solve and when. Sorry, what was the other half of the question?
Just so like, and especially like, how do you take those ideas that you're working on and how do you help them put them into action? Like you might be ideating with them, but then how do you hand those off and make that something that they're owning?
Gotcha. Well, I think that's actually the essence of innovation, right? People say innovation is a creative process. Creativity is within innovation. It's the brainstorming part. Innovation really happens when you take those ideas, make them real, and can deploy them. Again, describing innovation, what I love is it's one of the only things that's a process, but it's also an outcome. So when we work with those companies, we say, all right, we have some great ideas and we dream, right? And we whittle those down and we talk with people and we try and understand how can we do this the fastest, get the most informed information, but also, reduce costs, reduce basically labor, anything that goes into it. And then from there, how can we deploy it, get that feedback? But I think the innovative process allows people to land somewhere faster and probably further from where they would. A lot of times they look at what their competitor's doing, kind of like the example I gave of a retail chain. They just looked at what their competitors did. They didn't look at what Uber did and bring in other concepts into innovation. So I think the creation of it, but then actually deploying it and having people adopt it and walking them through that is what makes innovation successful within the organization.
Got it. Jens, I was curious to, from the mindset perspective, and I know you touch a lot of different areas with your work and specifically on the technical side, but when it comes to that mindset of innovation, are there ways that Gross-Wen really tries to engage that and have that innovation mindset throughout the staff and the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of our core values at GWT is that failure is okay. I think that's pretty ubiquitous across innovation, is that we know that failures will happen. And personally, in my journey through this startup business, that was really a tough lesson to learn. I was looking back at some work I did just 3 years ago the other day. And I thought to myself, if I had done that now, I would have done it totally differently, and that project didn't go through. So one of our core values was just that failure is okay. We learn through those mistakes, and then we become so much better through it. So.
And Jon, you had previous experience, or you had a lot of your career with a startup and scaling that. Can you talk about how you used that experience in a startup as you've transitioned to the university realm and really working with faculty and staff on their innovations and commercializing those?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think I mentioned I was at 6 startups. 5 of them failed miserably. But had that not happened, I don't think I would have been well positioned to help the 6th one become a unicorn, and now it has a $4 billion valuation or something like that. When I came back to the university, and Dr. Wintersteen, the university environment is so different than the corporate environment. It took a very long time for me to transition and to understand how to be effective in that environment, because it's just, it's decentralized, it's siloed, and it takes time building the connections. And I think that one of the things that Jeff said is really key, right? It's the community, and it's getting people together and communicating about common goals. And I think you have to have some sort of credibility to even be at the table for people to listen to you and hear you. Faculty and staff in a university environment, to me, it's just such a different, the urgency is very different. There isn't, in the corporate world, if you don't have a very healthy sense of paranoia about your startup, if you're not thinking that there's 4 other people smarter than you with more money than you somewhere else trying to solve the exact same problem, you're in trouble. You need to have that paranoia about you. And you need to run really, really fast. A lot of times faculty think they can do this and their day job, and so we try to disavow them of that as quickly as we can and try to get them to think, okay, you can have a piece of this, but you got to find the right talent around you to be able to execute if you want to do that. And I always tell people, go out and find someone who will kill your idea. And they look at me like I'm nuts. And it's, but it's true. You want to know, if you need to pivot, you want to know as soon as possible. You want to fail. And to your point, Jens, too, failure is terrific. It just really helps you move forward. It's a part of the process. You're always going to have to pivot. I think of very few companies that start out with a very specific idea and end up with the product at the end. It usually looks very different.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, mind if I ask a follow-on?
Yes.
Jon, the 5 ideas that didn't work out, what kind of support were you able to get within your entrepreneurial community? And if not, what would that support have looked like to be useful to you?
I think the difference with the 6th one that was successful is that we didn't care where people resided. And I was in Austin, Texas, the company was in San Francisco, and I was commuting back and forth. We wanted to find the right expertise. The superstars in that space that had done it before, didn't matter where they were, we were going to bring them together and figure out how to make it work. And I think that's what I learned, because I think that in the first 5, we were very specific to the location, the focus, and what talent was around us and what we could generate locally. And the 6th one, we recognized, no, we have to think talent first. We have to think culture and talent and what we're going to create from the very get-go, and I think that was a huge differentiator.
Thank you.
All right, and John, a follow-up question for you from me. So with that, and I might have lost it. I'll come back to it. Candy, I wanted to ask you about the mindset kind of from the entrepreneurial level at NIAC and with everything the John Papa John Center is doing. Can you talk a little bit? I know we talked earlier about just like the collaboration and how really that brings things together and that really gets the ideas that are going to be effective. That's really where those come from. Can you go a little deeper on that, on what does that actually look like in action?
Yeah, and I can piggyback on what John said. The community college system isn't real nimble and quick to pivot either. So, so on our end of the building, you know, we're the crazy people because we're the entrepreneur mindset. And so I think some of the things that we have to do at the community college setting, but even just as the Rural Entrepreneurship Center, is we are always trying to think outside the box on how to reach people. And we had a lot less startups when people had to drive 45 minutes to come to their class than when they're on Zoom. And so we've pivoted many times on how to deliver the classes and workshops to get the majority of the people access to the resources they need. So I think it's really always looking ahead, continuous improvement. How can we do things better? I mean, innovation's incremental too. So it's, you know, incremental, continuous improvement. So in our setting, I think I'm just fortunate that every person on my staff has been an entrepreneur, myself included, and so we know the blood, sweat, and tears and crying that goes into all of that. And we know failure is going to happen. And so it's just the way that we approach things. And I think the rest of the campus over the last 27 years has gotten used to us, but they did put us down on our own end, which allowed us also to start an innovation space. So we actually have a digital fab lab at NIAC. The entrepreneurs, students, and companies, so we have some public-private partnerships within that too. And that was started by my department, but now has been taken over by a different department because they serve so many people. Mm-hmm. And so now you've got students working with businesses, just even at the community college level, on problem solving and entrepreneurial ideas. So I think those types of thinking outside the box attitudes are what we have to keep having, especially if we want to see rural areas continue to grow.
Thank you. John, I remembered my question from a moment ago. You said you were really focused on talent, and like with the 6th startup that succeeded because of that talent, you and I have talked about how you know, the kind of the idea of the perception of Iowa, and that's changed a lot in terms of the view that startups can be built in Iowa and in the Midwest, but you have experience in those connections in Silicon Valley, which have been very important, and we talked about that. Can you share just a little bit of your view on, you know, as we have that need for talent in startups and just in general in Iowa for businesses, you know, your thoughts on how we attract and how we frame Iowa as a place for innovation?
I think everyone in this room is going to agree that when you get people from the outside to come to Iowa, their mind is opened up and it's changed a lot, right? Because most people don't have any experience with Iowa. They've probably never been here. And so for us, the key is curating the most positive experience possible when we get people to campus. And the mission is that we want them to come back a second time or a third time. And usually it's venture capitalists from the coast, or it's other high-level industry people that have had transformational success in a startup. But it's so important, and they're always blown away, and it kind of bothers me a little bit, but they're always blown away when they come to Iowa, like, wow, people are great, it's not flat like I thought, it's rather beautiful, and then they see how, I think one thing that we do really well here is we do collaborate quite well, and I think that's somewhat unique to people when they look around the rest of the world.
I'll take a slightly contra position. I don't think we need to engage so much in innovation theater to bring outsiders here to prove that we've got it. I think we need to celebrate our successes more ourselves and invest in them. I'm looking in this room. I'd venture a guess that a third of you qualify as accredited investors. You have family income of about $300,000 or individual of $200,000. How many of you have written a check to invest in a young company? Likely a pretty tiny number. I see one hand go up. I know there's about 10 more in here, but I know you don't want to identify yourself. That's okay. I would say invest in the companies that are here, because there is some really cool stuff happening in this neighborhood. I honestly would not have become an entrepreneur. Had American Republic not taken a chance on me as a contractor in 1992 for 3 months. But that gave me the capital to go into the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Somebody has to invest in those young companies. Otherwise, we'll constantly be in innovation theater, trying to bring people from outside to show them the cute startups that we grew here. We don't need that. We have successful companies that can grow here. So I would say, for those of you who can, invest in the companies that are growing locally, because there's some really cool shit happening. Somebody's going to have, John's going to have to edit that.
I want to continue asking kind of on that topic of just like, how do we position Iowa to, whether that's related to talent, just how do we position Iowa to be ready for innovation and to have the resources ready to provide? A lot of that is established, but I wanted to get anyone else's thoughts on what you think, what opportunities there are for Iowa right now to really be capitalizing on to advance innovation and entrepreneurship.
Can I start?
Yes.
So those of you who were here last year heard Diana Wright talk about the work we had done amongst a cohort at MIT called the Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. In that program, for 2 years, we studied what we were doing poorly, marginally well, or even well. And slightly compared, we were not really meant to compare, but slightly compared ourselves to 3 other regions in the Midwest and 4 others from different countries, and found that our capabilities here were actually quite strong. The MIT faculty asked us to come up with our must-win battles. Despite our capabilities being strong, we ended up with a list of nearly 16 items that needed attention. A group of high achievers will do that, right? We knew we couldn't do all 16. We knew that some of the team members needed to get back to their full-time jobs. We also knew that the success rate of these cohorts was so low that at the end of the program in December last year, we had a risk of disbanding. We as a team chose not to disband. So there are persisting members in this room right now, and new people have raised their hands to fight our must-win battles. Our 3 must-win battles that we identified are increase risk capital deployed to entrepreneurs, expand corporate connections between startups and entrepreneurs, and tell our story really, really well and really often. If we can do those 3 things consistently and strongly, we will continue to move forward. I've completely lost which question Sarah started with. But the soapbox was too good at this point to give up. I would say we as a region have the strength, and we as individuals in this room have the volunteers who are willing to do this. So they're investing time and many times money. We just need to do more of that. Sorry, Sarah, I have no idea what your question was.
It's okay. Anyone else have thoughts on? I can repeat the question.
Was it moving Iowa forward with innovation?
Kind of things, opportunities Iowa should be capitalizing on at this moment, given where we are.
I think Tej had the right approach there, and you can't eat the whole elephant in one bite. Is that how that saying goes? But to take what are the top 3 critical factors, and I would even like to see it even a larger group of stakeholders, because you could lead this. I've got a good idea right now. You gave me a good idea. You could lead it.
We'll bring you in as a volunteer.
Yeah, is really to have an innovation strategic plan. You know, what's Iowa's as a whole's innovation strategic planning And what does that look like with all the stakeholders in the ecosystem? Because we really do have great collaboration and you have great ideas. Just listening to just the innovation ideas, it was something so simple, but took a long time to get to. And so I think that happens, but with a group of stakeholders like we have in this room and like you guys leading the way, with a group like that, you can really do strategic planning and set the priorities statewide, not as IEDA or not as BioConnect or not as the Papa John Center, but as a group.
So I might say, many of you probably don't know who these individuals are that I'm referring to. MIT REAP members, including the guy who signed on this morning, would you mind standing so the rest of us know who you are? So if we know you, we can connect with you. Do I need to call out names? There you go. So this is the group that has been volunteering from risk capital to corporate connections to communications, and this is only a third of the group. There are more, and we will continue to beat this drum of both creating more successes within, investing in those successes, and then telling the world about it. Because MIT faculty was quite impressed as to what we had done. So should the rest of the world.
And to add to Tej's comments about MIT REAP, I had the opportunity to speak with him and several other members of that a new advisory group. So they're continuing the work of the MIT REAP from the MIT REAP program and known as the Central Iowa Entrepreneurship Coalition, or eShipCo. And there's a video of that conversation out today with the rest of the magazine content that is online at innovationIA.com. And we'll be sharing that out in the coming weeks. But I wanted to mention that, and Tej highlighted the focus areas and those three that they're at least starting with of the 16 must-win battles. Wanted to zero in a little bit on some of those with between corporate and startup engagement. That's been a focus area that's been discussed a lot. And Jens, I thought with your expertise, I wanted to ask a little bit about, as you said, your experience with finding those early adopters. And so I was curious, for those businesses and entities that are, often working with startups or evaluating them as potential providers of services or products, can you talk a little bit about that process and what both sides are maybe need to bring to that partnership and conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm sure many people in the room know, relationships are one of the most important things in business-to-business sales. And so we've always emphasized developing a key relationship between ourselves and an internal champion at those businesses or municipalities that will really advocate for the technology. That's often not enough. We've always found that we also need to demonstrate the success. And so we have a number of systems that will deploy in-site or on-site where we can actually test and demonstrate the system's treatment rates and how successful it can be. So it's been a combination of those two things that we've gotten over the hurdle of those early adopters. I would say those are the two main things, but the relationship is kind of what starts the deal, and then you need the middle piece, the meat and potatoes, as I like to say, the actual data, and then you need the relationship to finish the deal to make it go through.
And Gross-Wen also has is working with the city of Slater. It has that partnership. Is there anything you can share about kind of the considerations that like a local government has when they're considering something like this and this big of an investment in their infrastructure?
Absolutely, yeah. The local governments, they always need to make a decision based off first a need. There was a need for improved water quality at this community, as many communities in Iowa and across the nation face. So there's first a need, and then there's a desire for why this business or this option as opposed to others. And so they'll look at a number of things, and specifically in Slater, one of the key differentiators between us and other businesses or other opportunities was the ease of operations was really important to the operator. In these small communities in Iowa, the person that is operating their water plant is also pushing snow in the winter or catching a cat if it's gotten loose or whatever they're doing that day. So they're doing a lot of things, and so they need technologies and solutions that work for their site, for their small to medium-sized municipality, and so that was one of the main reasons why we were selected was the ease of operations with our technology.
Thank you. So I wanted to turn now to talk a little bit about venture capital. So as many people are probably already aware that venture capital has seen a bit of a slowdown in the last couple of years, and that is seen in a variety of statistics and everything. But I wanted to get, the national view is not necessarily what's affecting startups in Iowa, so I want to get a pulse from folks on our panel from their different perspectives on the current state of risk capital investment and for both startups and investors, and how that's affecting startups and investors here, specifically in Iowa, whether that's VC availability or just any changes with the national situation. Tej, could we start with you?
Sure. So I would have had a different answer to that question had I not spoken with a veteran angel investor just before lunch was served. And what I found out was that one of the earliest deals from that portfolio just hit a good positive exit not so long ago. So that means there's probably more dry powder coming for investments. So my answer would have been capital is on its decline, but I think the capital that is hungry for investment is still available. So I've seen that recently in several angel deals where when the follow-on capital was requested, the existing investors wrote the full amount of the check that was anticipated of them. Now, that's happening for startups that are following through. There are a lot of startups who are hearing the industry news and then going into that negative, depressive state that there is no capital available. That's dangerous. So it's up to us who are in capital to keep reminding them that if they are hitting their goals, the investors are keeping dry powder ready to invest in them. I've written checks like that. If Martin had another raise, and full disclosure, I'm invested in Gross-Wen also, because of the progress they're showing, the investors in GWT will very likely follow through because they want to see their prior investments grow. Where we are short today in Iowa, and as voting Iowans, I'm going to give you another task. Angel tax credits expired in July of 23. What that means is the tax credit that was available to angel investors for writing checks in companies raising $250,000 or more went away for a little bit. If you're speaking with your senators, your representatives in Iowa, talk to them about what it does. Our very first two investments as Plains Angels in 2012 were in rural companies. Both have exited in a positive way. Investors are looking for every way to invest more capital. Tax credits are one of those items. We are short of tax credits, so we are trying to lobby for more of those items. Similarly, venture funds, new venture funds in Iowa, have a higher threshold than is available in our state. So we are trying to see if that threshold could be lowered a little bit so more funds can be created, in the $5 to $10 million range rather than $15 to $100 million range. So we're trying to increase those sources of capital, but there is a significant amount of wealth in our urban and rural communities that needs deployed. It is being deployed out of state because those funds are available. I can invest in a Minnesota startup and get a Minnesota credit a lot faster. Greenbacks spend the same across any state line. The state line is a virtual line, right? So we need to invest in those things that invite other angels, other venture investors to the table. And that we can do as citizens, as influencers to the Senate and House.
I would agree with that. I would echo that. I think that the tax credit is really necessary. I know IADA is on the same page with us. I just think there's work that has to be done to get that reinstated. I think the landscape in Iowa is better than it was when I came here 6 years ago. So I'm pleased. There's more vehicles available. I think on a national stage, there is plenty of money. There is an awful lot of money, but I think the premise for investing has changed. I think the money is still there, but companies, the big firms that I've worked with in Silicon Valley are doubling down on their existing investments, saving more dry powder to be able to reinvest as they progress, as you described. One thing I noticed too, before the pandemic, there was also a lot of money, and people were really looking to go beyond the coast to come to the Midwest and look at stuff. Pandemic happened, and that sort of stopped. People weren't like venturing out, no pun intended. They weren't reaching out as much as they were previously. But the money is still there, and if you have a great idea, it always comes down to the team, right? Venture is they're gonna bet on the jockey, not the horse. So you have to have a great idea, but you also have a really good team that they're confident in you can execute. And on the healthcare side, we've gone from our companies that come out of University of Iowa, averaging about $8 million a year when I got here, to nearly $80 million a year, 5 years later, 6 years later. That's a big change. But it's really being able to find the right talent component to go with a very cool idea. And if you can do those two things, you're going to find money.
Andy?
I just wanted to add, kind of piggyback on what Jon said earlier too, and it relates to what you're saying, is for us as entrepreneurship centers, SBDC centers, it's our job to get them prepared to get angel investment. And part of that is mentoring, which you mentioned earlier, because I really think that's critical also, a good mentoring program. So we need a lot of people to volunteer to be mentors in that space, right, Jon? But that keeps them on track, keeps them going forward, as Tej mentioned too. And so I think the mentoring aspect, we have some good programs going, but there's never enough mentors, never.
All right. And I wanted to ask a little bit about education and kind of that turn to focus on a lot of more entrepreneurial skills, and that sector really starting to recognize that impact of those, especially as we move toward a future where students are going to have more jobs than they did than previous generations, and the things they're going to be doing are going to change much more rapidly, or at least most likely. Going back to that innovation mindset and thinking about that more broadly, any thoughts on how we instill that mindset and how that can influence the workforce's hiring needs and businesses kind of change their approach in the future when it comes to how they're hiring in order to innovate? Go for it. Oh.
So I think education is an interesting vertical. Every, I guess, industry has its life cycle and is meant to be disrupted at some point because, again, it's just needed. What's unique about education is understanding how we can push down those philosophies that innovation lends itself, the curiosity, the resiliency, the availability to fail, and pushing those all the way down to kindergarten or pre-K. And they can be at incremental levels, but building on that foundationally like we do with spelling or like we do with reading, because I think a lot of you in this room would agree anymore, we don't care what the school says on the resume. We don't care, okay, you have this like true tactile skill. We want people who are critical thinkers, who can actually push boundaries within in a collaborative way. And that is harder to find. It's easier to find tacticians. So it's actually fun for us. It's a vertical we work in a lot. We actually are launching a K-12 lab to be devoted specifically to this, because innovation and education is key. They're the future, and innovation is really just designing things, right? So we want the people designing our world to have these skills.
Where would we be without JPEG at each of our colleges and community colleges? You think about that. If John Papajohn hadn't made that kind of investment and had that vision, where would we be today? I think that's really interesting. You think about what they're doing at Ivy, what they're doing at Tippy, what they're doing at DMAC. It's essential, right? It's really essential. It would be nice if we all had a lot more money to pour into those programs and to accelerate them, because we haven't gotten a huge amount of funding from the state in this area, but I would love to see that be a major emphasis of our ask too going forward, because I think a lot more money could dramatically accelerate the scope of innovation in the state.
I think a part of education that the risk capital component of the eShip Coalition is looking at is angel education. So how do we inform those who are qualified investors on what that even looks like? You've heard us throw phrases around like dry powder or risk capital, but do you really know what that means? So one of the things we're doing is continuing now a 2-year tradition of angel education over a summit with curricula. So 3 classes that will go into the very basics of what does it mean to deploy a part of your investment ability into high-risk capital. How do you do that? How do you construct a portfolio? Do you put all your eggs in one basket, or you spread them with a diversified approach? Do you just look at an industry like healthcare or ag, or do you look at the portfolio of industries that this state has established capabilities in? Our universities aren't the same, so why should our investments all look the same? There is a lot to deliver in form of that education. So I'm glad there are colleagues in that back corner who are working with and are going to educate a group of people who could become angel investors. And if some of these things interest you, hit me up after, please. We'd love to have you join us.
Can I ask Tej a question?
Yes.
Since he asked me one.
Fair play.
Do you find it challenging for would-be investors when they're looking at something outside their scope of understanding? Or how do you overcome that if they don't really understand? You think it's investable, but they don't understand the space.
I don't find it challenging. I just find that many of these individuals who have raised their hands to be angels are curious by nature. So they ask questions about that industry. I've had insurance people investing in beverage. I've had retail people investing in new drug discovery. They're just curious people, and curiosity breeds a diverse portfolio, and it's the diverse portfolios that have always produced the efficient markets for us. So curiosity tends to self-select into these portfolios. That's what I've found. Have you?
Yes.
Awesome. We did not plan that question.
Were you there?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to share a little bit of my own experience, and I appreciate the comments on curiosity because I think that's kind of how I got to be here today. You know, when I was at an undergraduate at Iowa State, actually, I met Martin Gross, and then he got me all into what's this algae thing, you know. So I stuck along with him, and now I'm here today after several years of working with him. So I really appreciated Dr. Winterstein's comments about involving undergraduates as they are coming through their education and working with businesses to kind of maintain that curiosity mindset. What is all this? What is this world outside of school? So that's definitely a very important aspect of it. And then speaking, I guess, on behalf of Martin, I know he always advocates, he teaches a course at Iowa State for master's and PhD students to take their ideas and their expertise and expand on it beyond going into academic research and take their ideas and grow it into a business like he has done here with GWT. So those are the 2 things I wanted to share from my experience.
I think if you guys can all expand the use of students for internships would be a huge value add. I know a lot of people do that really well, but it seems like if we want to keep this talent in the state, we need to expose them to opportunities within the state.
Thank you. All right. I think we have time for a few more questions. And I'm going to stay on education for a moment. And because Candy, the NIAC JPEC is a part of the Great Plains Entrepreneurship Consortium, make sure I get that correct, which was founded by a group of Western Iowa colleges last year, and really focused on accelerating evolving entrepreneurship in that region of the state. Can you talk briefly about that mission and what actions you're really looking to foster in that area?
Sure. Looking at where are the gaps in student entrepreneurship, and we know University of Iowa and Iowa State University have great programs, SCI starters and mentor programs, and what can we do we couldn't do it individually. And so actually Paula at Drake University was kind of leading the way on that. And we, as the private universities and the smaller colleges, we needed to form a consortium because as an individual, we wouldn't succeed near as well as if there was a group effort. So just looking at, the K through 12 is not what we're looking at, but I agree. The education, the younger you can start teaching the entrepreneurial mindset and what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What's the process like? And so for those college students, we really wanted them to have a good experience. And that was really where John Papajohn's heart was, always with the students. And with him gone, how can we keep that going as a group, as all the centers, but especially in areas where we have more challenges in rural areas. In the western side of the state was the group that formed first. But I can see that we piloted the entrepreneurship summit last year. Went over really well. The students were really engaged. That networking piece was huge for them, seeing other people who also aren't afraid to fail, and the like-mindedness, and that's what we really need to keep that entrepreneurial mindset growing and keep them here too. So I think that will just grow and get bigger with more. We had to start with one group, but I can see that growing too. So, but the education piece that Jeff mentioned earlier is really important too, and we've been looking at what can we do in the middle school age. We have a 5th grade program, and then what can we do in the high school career academies and those transitioning that are going to go direct into the workforce from high school with trade skills. How can we get them that entrepreneurial mindset so they can be problem solvers on the job, because the entrepreneur is just as important as the entrepreneur.
I was going to say, I think one thing I'd add is that, first, I would agree. I'm glad you said entrepreneur. A lot of times when people say we're going to teach these entrepreneurial skills, they think, oh, you're going to go off and start a business. It's not necessarily that. It's teaching them the skills that it would take to potentially run a business, but entrepreneurs are just as valuable as entrepreneurs because while they may possess the same skills, they don't have the risk tolerance to go do something on their own, which is A-okay. There's plenty of people I talk to, and I'm sure that you guys have talked to, that they kind of want to do something, they don't know, so they should say somewhere, but they're a really great asset internally. As far as the, internships that John had mentioned, I think there's 2 parts to that. One, as a business community, right, we need to help support the schools and help inform them of truly what we're needing. And I know a lot of those conversations happen, but really understand how you can be ingrained and connected with the schools that make sense, especially for employers that are global. It doesn't just have to be because you're headquartered here in those schools. Think about reaching out to schools in communities where you just have employees, right? That's one approach to it. But the other piece as employers is taking a hard look in the mirror and saying, is the opportunity that I'm providing these students actually growing them, furthering them, providing what we're talking about, right? Curiosity, failure, understanding, prototyping within my business. Because I will say a lot of companies that we work with to help develop those types of programs, it's kind of the old school thing, right? You get an intern, they come in, they help you do some filing stuff, they go around, they just shadow people. Not that that's not important, but how exciting is that? I mean, even explaining it's kind of boring, right? So how are you actually creating an innovative or a truly connected and empathetic experience for the students that come to your businesses? Because it will spark curiosity in some way. Maybe it's not your business, but if it puts them down a path towards being the next doctor or inventing a new drug, creating a new, process, that's what we need to do.
Or going to work for a startup and not be afraid of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd further stratify that student and the entrepreneur element into two pieces. There is a segment of entrepreneurship that's driven toward making that individual or that individual's proximity community's life better. That's, you might derogatively call it a lifestyle business. It could be retail, it could be consulting services, whatever. Then there is a segment that our universities are stellar at, which is that the truly innovation true innovation drivers that create intellectual property. We have tech transfer offices in our state universities that are producing some incredible discoveries. When we sat down with the research institutions to find out how they did tech transfer, and just mentally sitting in the room compared with what we did, we actually had a better process. We actually had a better office. How do we take those very students who have been close to those technologies being created in academia and commercialize them better, bigger, for our true innovation drivers? So there is an opportunity for a very small segment to achieve that exponential growth through those technology transfers that we're discovering at our 3 state universities.
All right, I would love to keep this going, but unfortunately we are coming up on the end of our time. So I'm going to ask the panelists now, we're going to merge the final question and the final thought. So the final question that I'd like you all to answer, and we'll start with Jeff, is after asking all of you these questions, I'd like you to share what questions you think we should be asking as stakeholders or as the state. What questions should we be asking to advance the future of Iowa and innovation and entrepreneurship?
That is a good question. I would say maybe the first thing to do is pause and ask ourselves, is the questions we're asking are the right questions? Right? And that's part of the innovation process. Is the challenge we're working on really the right challenge? Not saying that it's not, but by doing that and then digging in and understanding, okay, how we're connecting with communities, or how we're helping students, or how we're providing support to businesses. You know, there's even the venture piece, right? Tej has a great point. There's so many ways to get involved in investment that it doesn't have to be a $10 million check. It could be 20 people that write, you know, a $500,000 check or even more, right? That's the whole crowdsourcing piece. So I really think it's just pausing and reflecting and saying, are we working on the right challenges? And then as those conversations grow, using REAP as a resource and understanding how do we make those initiatives become statewide.
Candy?
Any Game of Thrones fans? I think the question we need to ask is, where are the gaps? So we have to take a higher level overview. So remember, when they have that map and they're moving all the families around, I think we need to do that and identify where are the gaps, and then who are the people that can help us come up with a plan to fill those gaps.
I would extend that. So last year's Innovation Iowa magazine highlighted those 5 stakeholder groups: corporates, entrepreneurs, risk capital, university, and government. Each of us can probably fit ourselves into one of those 5, maybe even more than one. Find whichever one you're in and see how you can help the youngest companies being formed in your region. You just need 1 or 2. You don't need a dozen. Step in with 1 or 2 and watch the magic happen.
Geez, I don't know what to add after that. Well, it'd be great to ask all of you guys what you think and what you think we can do better. I mean, I just think you're right. Asking the questions is something you have to continually check in on and constantly do to make sure that the premise that we have going forward and that what we're funding, what we're supporting is the right thing for us. On my side, on the university, where we're thinking about, often it's about healthcare, and it's really expensive to get a healthcare product all the way through the regulatory. It's far more expensive than anything else we're doing, and it doesn't necessarily resonate locally until the thing gets all the way to the other end and it's in the market and it's available to humans. So sometimes I feel like we're a AAA farm club because we're growing all this talent. Some of it will stay, which is terrific, but some of it's going to go to Boston, and it needs to go to Boston because that's where the talent is and that's where the money is, and they got to move really fast. So we have to be okay with that. But I think that we constantly have to keep asking these questions to understand if we're supporting the community the best way possible, and it's got to be a long-term vision. Support from all the stakeholders you just mentioned.
Yeah, for me, innovation is about solving challenges. So the question I'd ask everybody to ask themselves is, what are the challenges we're facing in Iowa, or collective challenges that we face on our day-to-days? And then using your resources or your connections to find innovators or businesses that are already trying to solve those challenges and really encourage them, bring them into this space, help them connect to people that can bring them to a successful, maybe a unicorn exit or whatever it is, whatever level of success that they're trying to get to, really seek to solve the challenges that we're all facing.
Great, thank you. And thank you again to all of our panelists for making this such a great conversation. Can we give them another round of applause? Thank you to you all for being here to learn about Iowa's entrepreneurial ecosystem and the role you each play in making sure our state is prepared for the future. I'm going to turn the podium now over to Chris Konetsky to share about some upcoming events and wrap us up. Chris?
Let's give Sarah a big round of applause for helping moderate today's conversation. Sarah was an intern with us that started during the pandemic, and a really good success story of that process of getting somebody in and seeing the talent that they have, and she's done a fantastic job with us. I'll skip past some of the events and just quickly say that we've got a series called Envision Iowa, which is going to touch on a lot of the themes that we talked about today. The first of 3 virtual think tanks is on July 18th. We have one in July, one in August, one in September, and then an in-person event in October. Innovation ends up bubbling its way into each of those. That's an initiative that we started to help talk about economic development across the state in small communities, but also here in Des Moines as well. So we'd encourage you to participate in that if you're interested in continuing talking about some of these topics. I also want to highlight the Innovation Iowa magazine. On your table, everybody has the 9th edition of the Innovation Iowa publication. This publication was started to really hit at the 3rd item that Tej talked about, which is how do we tell the story about innovation here in the state. The publication is one way that we do that. We also have a weekly e-newsletter that Sarah writes as well. Each of those is built specifically to try to raise the profile, help tell the stories, give resources to people to be able to share about the things that are happening across our state to help with some of that challenge. And so that's one that I, of course, am going to be talking with Tej a little bit more about where he sees ways for us to help amplify that. The magazine is packed full of stories, some of the things you heard talked about today. So I want to thank again Sarah Dean, along with our special projects editor, Emily Wood, and the entire newsroom for contributing to that publication, along with our creative team, Lauren Burt, Kate Meyer, and Patrick Hertine for their fantastic work, and of course the advertising team for helping power the publication. And the publication wouldn't be possible without the support of the advertisers and our sponsors. So thank you again to Wellaby and our supporting sponsors, Nymaster Law, Momentum Studios, and our chapter sponsors, University of Iowa and Cambridge Investment Research. The physical publication is also going to be delivered in this week's business record. It's going to go to our statewide audience as well so that we're getting that word out across the state. Stories are also available on innovationIOWA.com, so make sure to grab a copy today as you're heading out. Thank you again for attending and spending your afternoon with us. We know there's a lot of places you can spend your day, and so we really do appreciate you spending it here today, learning, taking some of the things from today's conversation, hopefully back to your offices and back out into the community. If our newsroom can ever be of any help, please feel free to reach out to Sarah. From an innovation standpoint, our entire team is always looking for great story ideas. That's how we get to share the word about what's going on, and we need to know that from you all. And of course, you hear me say this all the time, our team is here to help you each and every day and help you and your business do business better. So if anyone from our team can help, or if I can be of any help, please feel free to reach out my way. Lastly, let's give a big round of applause to our panelists today one more time. Thank you for helping us learn and grow. Thank you to everyone here today for everything you do in the community. Go make some good news and have a good afternoon.